in there.
Is that a CBD shake? Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna chill out, man. Get some CBD, mango smoothie.
I definitely need that.
You what?
I definitely need this right now.
You do? Yeah. Need it all the time. All right, guys, I really have my work cut out for me today. First of all, I'm making a Claire Saffitz recipe, and it's a baking recipe. Always a little bit intimidating, even for me. But this is what I'm going to be making, salted caramel chocolate tart. And one of the things that is incredibly exciting about it, and what it's kind of all about, is the kind of groundbreaking use of salt in a dessert. Okay, so I'm starting with this chocolate crust. And that's one of the 3 layers in the dessert. There's a chocolate crust, there's a salted caramel filling, and then on the top there's a bittersweet chocolate ganache, and then on top of that there's flaky salt. All right, the chocolate part is coming from cocoa. This is unsweetened cocoa powder. This is sugar. So this salt that's going into the crust, this is kosher salt. And I wouldn't use flaky salt in the dough because what we want here is for this salt to disperse throughout the dough as one of the dry ingredients. This is all-purpose flour. Because we're replacing part of the dry ingredients with cocoa powder, you're losing some of that hold-togetherness power that you have in all-purpose. So it makes the dough a little bit more crumbly, a little bit closer to, in French pastry, they would call a sablé dough. Sablé means sandy. You'll notice that I am working the butter more than I would necessarily for a flaky dough. I'm actually working this enough with my fingers. Oh, it makes little powder explosions, cocoa powder puffs, to really work the butter down to a very fine texture. We can talk about salt and dessert. Salt and chocolate are really important to pair together. Chocolate just takes so well to the flavors of salt, and it kind of brings out all of the flavors in the chocolate itself. Salt does another thing, which is that it tempers butterfat. So if you tried making a crust or a cookie without salt and eat it, it's just gonna taste very one-dimensional. So I have 1 large egg yolk going in, and 3 tablespoons of whole milk. A fork is nice because it keeps things pretty fluffy and lets everything pass through. I just prefer using my hands. I feel like the fork got everything pretty distributed, but I feel like I can get a much better sense here with my fingers. So I don't want to go crazy, but I'm working it more than I would a regular dough and getting to the point where it holds together when squozen. Got your plastic wrap. You got your dough. I know it looks really crumbly. Anyway, I'm making my little chocolate bundle using the plastic wrap to squeeze it and to press it into a disc. The rounder it is now, the better chance I'm going to have of making it round when I roll it out, and also the better for frisbeeing. Tarota, are we ready? Fling! The dough, as I was talking about before, this is a shorter kind of a pastry dough. You might feel like it's falling apart or it's getting crumbly or it's cracking more than usual. Don't worry about it. One of the things that's great about this dough is that you can kind of patch it and push everything back together. And then I was also reading about short crust doughs in preparation for this video. The way that I look at it is the things that I don't know about and that other people are better at than me is something that is just a fact of life because I'm surrounded with all these incredible people every day. But all of those are just an opportunity to figure something out that I don't know. I've talked about how Chris Morocco had told me once about rolling a dough that turning it, giving it a quarter turn every pass is a great way to avoid cracks. There are going to be moments later on where we might see some cracking, and I'm going to do the exact same thing then. I'm going to use the dough to patch all of those cracks. All right, so what I want now, this is the way I do it. You could measure with a ruler, but I like to take the tart pan that I'm going into and just give it an eyeball. The dough should be a couple of inches bigger than the outside edge of this. The normal way that I like to do this is I roll the dough onto the pin and then I lift it and put it back down. If we do that here, this dough is too sablé, it's too sandy, it's too crumbly, it's not gonna work. So what I'm gonna do is lift up a little edge here and toss a little flour under. And then I'm just gonna slide this under. This is gonna become my lifter. And then carefully lifting the edges of the dough over so that everything is kind of contained on this. Think of this as like a little lifting platform. And now I can lift it up without anything breaking off and just lower it into the pan. And then I can unfold. Instead of having to lower it in, I'm just unfurling the sides. And you don't want to press too much in there because that's just going to make the dough thin. But I need a little extra here because there's a missing link. And then I'm just keeping my eyes peeled for any little cracks or thin spots. Taking this rolling pin again, I'm just going to run it over the top and zip all this excess over so it's just getting cut off. I'm going to dock the bottom with this fork, and what that does is it prevents the dough from puffing up in the oven. They're going to fill back in. It's not like the bottom of your tart is going to have holes in it and caramel is going to leak out. These are going to fill back in, but having a little place for the air to go is going to prevent it from just turning into a big, rocky, bumpy surface. This is going to go now and get frozen until it's firm. Ta-da! Oh, hi guys! All right, so moving on to the salted caramel part of the salted caramel chocolate tart. So cream of tartar, because it's an acidic ingredient, is going to prevent the sugar crystals from wanting to get back together and stay together. So that's really key when you're making caramel. So I'm starting over medium-low heat, and I'm going to heat this pretty gently at the beginning until I'm 100% sure that all of the sugar has dissolved. And the way that you can tell is obviously it's not going to have this whitish, grainy appearance. It'll get clear and thin and just look like a sugar syrup. But you don't want to rush that, and it's totally fine. And in fact, don't worry about it at all, that you can stir during that step. So again, if you raise the heat now and you do it too soon, you're going to dissolve some of the sugar, but not all of it, and your caramel will never caramelize. All right, this is just about clear. Totally clear there. Now I've got bubbles. Now I feel good. Now is the time to say goodbye to the stirring phase of the caramel. I'm turning the heat up just a touch. You know, the phase from like white to a light pale yellow is like forever and ever and ever, but from that pale yellow to completely finished is like 2 minutes. So don't sleep on the caramel, guys. Just have to watch. It can be soothing. Nice clear bubbles. That's another thing that I'm looking for and feeling relieved about. If there was any kind of foaminess or residue on the tops of those bubbles, that's a sign that your sugar is still crystallized and you're not going to have a caramel. Instead of being completely clear, this looks like very, very, very pale, like watered down honey, which means the caramelization process has started. Now things are happening. Maple syrup color, but the instructions in this is it's a dark amber with wisps of smoke. I see a little bit of smoke, a little bit of smoke. All right, very carefully now, because this is incredibly hot and there's water in butter, and water boils at a much lower temperature is what's happening in here. I'm adding the butter into the caramel and it foams up pretty energetically. And then I'm going to stir this until I feel like that butter is melted, which obviously is happening incredibly quickly. And then adding the cream again, same sputtering and buttering is going to go on. And the salt. All right, now I want to stir this until it's just completely dissolved and this foaming subsides. So now that everything is dissolved, no lumpy bumpies. All right, I've got my frozen, raw, fork-pricked chocolate tart crust. The next step is to blind bake this crust. Blind baking just means you're baking it without anything in it, which is kind of a misnomer because it has to be filled with pie weights. And then, oh, it's really heavy. These are ball bearings. If you have just regular pie weights at home or dried beans or rice, that is totally fine. We found all these ball bearings in our old kitchen, and someone had the idea to use them as pie weights, and they're incredible. All right, so those are in there. The job of the pie weights is to keep the crust from slumping or puffing during the blind baking, and this cooks in 2 stages. About halfway through, I'm going to take the ball bearings out, but for now, they need to be in. Ooh, ball bearings are heavy. All right, so now we're making the third and final layer of this tart, is a bittersweet chocolate ganache. So what I have here is called a double boiler, and it's just simmering water under there, bittersweet chocolate. It's important to double check, don't go above 70% cacao. If you do, the ganache could break and get oily. A little bit more of unsalted butter and heavy cream. So I'm just stirring. This goes a lot faster than the caramel, so it's cool. So the butter is almost melted. Every other component in this dish has salt. The ganache doesn't, and that's because on the very top of the ganache there's going to be a shower of flaky salt crystals. So that's where the chocolate and the salt are going to have their moment. Don't worry. I feel great about this. So now that everything is melted and completely smooth, you just have to leave it at room temperature. Don't put it in the fridge or anything. It'll cool down too unevenly. All right, I want to check on that blind baking tart crust. Okay, so what I'm looking for, and I can tell without moving this around too much, is that we've arrived, is that the edges of the crust are starting to look dry. The bottom of the crust is going to have to go a little bit longer, but now it's safe to take the weights out. And another thing to make sure as you're lifting the pie weights out is that the parchment paper or the foil that you used is not sticking to the bottom, and that you don't accidentally lift out the entire tart while you do this. Going back in. I've got my blind baked, cooled tart shell. It's important that the tart shell itself has time to cool down, but it's okay that my caramel, the salted caramel that I made before, is still a little bit warm. Oh my God, it looks so good. It's a little bit runnier than it's going to be when it's completely cool, but you can kind of get a sense of what that finished texture is going to be. If the caramel is too oozy, what happens is when you cut a slice, the caramel runs out, the ganache roof sinks down and just flattens out. So it was worth it. We messed around, but that's how you get to be BA's best. You know what I mean? This is going to cool down now with the caramel in there before we add the ganache. All the layers have to be cool. If they weren't, the chocolate would melt on contact, and then that would be not what we want. It's not warm to the touch anymore. It's all the same temperature, and it's in the cooled crust. So now is the fun part where we get to do the swooshes and the swirls. So one of the things that Claire and I talked about was leaving a little bit of an edge around the border so that you can see the caramel underneath, but just using the back of a spoon, or you kind of get to make all of these decorative swirls. And the cooler the ganache is, the more they're gonna hold. Ooh la la, I love them. This is the last part of the salted caramel chocolate tart, which is fleur de sel. So, or any flaky salt really. Fleur de sel is a salt from Brittany. Somebody fact check me. And they're very delicate, kind of like shards that sometimes form into little pyramid shapes. So this is just regular old bowl, ordinary, nothing to see here, centering the tart on top of the bowl. Ta-da! So again, you've got your 3 distinct layers: chocolate crust, incredible salted caramel, beautiful bittersweet ganache, that final shower of salt. And if you could have the most decadent gourmet version of why a candy bar is so enjoyable to eat, this is the perfect example of that. I don't know. I think I nailed it. Did my very best. Anyway, you slice it, I now get to try it. What is there to say? Carla's fingernails are so dirty. No, they just have cocoa underneath them. Carla's fingernails are very clean and they taste delicious.